that are here, we are moving the local board import to later. So we are going to go, and there's no extraordinary business, we're going straight on to the presentations from the Auckland Regional Amenities Funding Board. Vern, Anita and Catherine, you want to come up, or Vern? And you can make your farewell speech later at the end, Vern.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just Your Worship, this is just a continuation of the presentations from last month, where we had 3 amenities present. We have 6 today. It's just an opportunity for them to acknowledge the support of Auckland Council, and for them to also highlight some of their things that they've managed to achieve with your support over the last 12 months. So, Mr. Chairman, while I'm here, it might be appropriate that I introduce the new Chair and Deputy Chair of the Auckland Regional Amenities Funding Board to you, sitting behind me. Nita Colleen is taking over as Chair in 12 days and 14 hours, and and Catherine Harland taken over as Deputy Chair. So I wish them every success, and please feel free to question the amenities as they present, and they will self-introduce. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vern. Right, we'll welcome up New Zealand Opera and the team, and if whoever is the leader could introduce the others, please. Welcome.
Good morning. Excuse me if I'm not familiar the way I talk with the technology. My name's Matt Malin. I'm a board member of New Zealand Opera. I won't be presenting to you today, but I'll hand over to Thomas de Mallet-Burgess, who is our General Director, and he will take you through our presentation. I'm happy to answer some questions at the end. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And Thomas, could you just introduce the other 2 members, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So to my right, Mr. Stephen Sinclair, our Director of Finance, and beyond him, Ms. Shona Roberts, our Director of Artistic Operations.
You're welcome.
Tēnā koutou. Good morning, Your Worship, Mr. Chair, councillors, staff. This is a very exciting time for New Zealand Opera, with almost every aspect of our company undergoing a radical transformation. I'm conscious that our time this morning is very limited, so what I will say will just touch upon these changes, including elements of our strategy, values, our opera activity, including our main scale work and other projects, and I'll finish up with some brief information on funding and finances. I've been in the role of General Director for a year now, and during this period I have overseen a new strategic agenda from 2020 onwards that incorporates a new purpose, ambition and values for our company. What this means, in a rather reduced form, is discovering what opera means for New Zealand, not what opera means for America or for Europe, but what it means for here in Aotearoa. What it means for us here in Auckland, for our communities, for our creative ecology, and for our well-being. So, we will reimagine opera in a way that reflects the time and place we live in. So, for example, our 2020 season will revolve around the role women play in effecting revolutionary change. We will present new and innovative programs that increase the opportunities for wider community participation. For example, we're going to form our own Baroque orchestra.
We could just hold a bit. We're having a little bit of an issue with the screen.
Technical hitch.
I can do, if you want to tell me next slide, I'll move it for you.
No, I think that's all right.
That's your first one, first slide.
Go back to the second slide, please.
We should be on purpose and ambition.
Yeah, that's the first one.
So go to the second, thank you. I'll wave at you then.
Great, I was just building up a head of steam there.
Whoop, she's flicked again.
We all good to go? It's misbehaving.
Yeah, something's misbehaving, but we need to go back to our purpose.
Oh, good.
That's it. Right.
Right. You've got me nervous now.
No.
I'm going to be looking at that screen. Oh, it's off again.
Oh, she's off again. Please, just
Is
continue.
there on a timer? sorry.
Yeah, that would be a reasonable conclusion, wouldn't it?
There's no hands.
It's a gremlin. All right. Well, it can be a sort of movie then. So, to recap, from 2020 onwards, we intend to reimagine opera to reflect more fully the time and the place we live in. So, as I mentioned, the 2020 season it will revolve around aspects of the role women play in effecting revolutionary change. We intend to present new and innovative programs that increase the opportunities for wider community participation. So, for example, forming our own Baroque orchestra and involving church choirs in one of our large opera productions. We will continue to produce works of size and scale, but also invest in innovative, smaller scale productions, including site-specific works that take opera out into the community beyond the city centre. We will embrace the diversity of our city, culturally, regionally, demographically, and in particular, we wish to engage with Maori and Pasifika arts. We will commission new work that reflects New Zealand voices, and we will support people to create opera who don't even know yet that this is the art form they need to express themselves. We will launch a new artist development program that supports young singers, but also opens the training and development up to other artists, including directors, writers, and composers. We already employ over 500 people at different points in the year here in Auckland. Expect to see that number rise as our activity expands. Our values, which appeared fleetingly on a slide, I think it should be self-evident from that we're moving towards biculturalism and bilingualism as a company. The key concepts behind our values are well-being, diverse communities, participation, collaboration, and innovation. So, in a way, I suppose this is not only opera for the people, but also opera by the people. And so, with this future in mind, let's take a look back to the last 12 months. We're a national organisation. We're very proud to be based in Auckland and to serve this community. In the last 12 months, we performed to over 23,000 people in Auckland. 2 operas of size and scale and a plethora of other activity, including free events attended by over 5,000 people. Puccini's La Bohème performed in Auckland and Wellington. Over 7,800 people attended here. It received excellent reviews, and there was a whole host of satellite activity, from free pre-show talks to touch tours and audio descriptions for the blind and visually impaired. Not only were young people in the cast, but school students attended the dress rehearsal at a special rate. This was taken up by over 450 students from schools, including Dingwall Trust. By the way, we recognise that there are barriers to opera, and we have special youth ambassadors to represent us with young people. They're hugely good at their job. Feedback from the schools on this programme was mind-blowing. Our second main-scale production is The Barber of Seville. That's just finished up here in Auckland at the Altair Centre and is now on tour to Wellington and Christchurch. Over 5,380 people saw this production in Auckland. We trialled a host of ticketing options to keep the price down, such as family deals. We offered $10 tickets to school students and $25 tickets to tertiary students. We launched an Opera for One initiative to encourage people to feel safe coming to the opera on their own, and that was hugely successful for us. Foundation North funded 11 schools and educational organisations from South Auckland to attend opening night at no charge. And believe me, those kids were the life and soul of the party. We also had a plethora of supporting activity, pre-show talks, backstage talks, pre-show touch tour and audio description for the blind and visually impaired patrons, and there was a huge response to that programme. The reviews were great, and so now I'll go on to activity at other points in the year. Our Opera in Schools programme is an extraordinary programme, a 45-minute adaptation of The Barber of Seville, performed in English by our emerging artists. We bring the set, costumes, music and a resource pack to the school, and this reaches very different parts of the community. In this case, we were out to Mount Eden, Te Atatu, Takapuna, Hillcrest, Epsom, Hobsonville, Pakuranga, Albany and Remuera. The students and the schools absolutely loved it. We participate in Auckland Live's Pick and Mix programme in the last 12 months at Mangere Arts Centre, Bruce Mason Centre in Takapuna, and at the Town Hall here in Auckland. These are free performances, in this case 3 performances of The Elixir of Love, and these were attended by over 1,600 people of all ages, mainly families. Every year we offer Music in the Parks, an annual programme in Dingledell in St Heliers. It's hugely popular, free of charge. More than 3,000 people attended this year. I was there were people literally hanging out of the trees, so we're going to have to look for a bigger park next year. And that's, we're well on our way to doing that. We can really grow that event. Every year we also host an open day at our rehearsal rooms in Parnell. More than 250 people came along this year to experience a rehearsal, look at the sets, costumes, wigs, makeup, and so forth. Quite a few dressed up as well and took their photo and posted it on social media. This event attracts a really diverse audience and helps us further embed ourselves in the community. Finally, in terms of our programme, there were 2 free concerts that started the year. Over 600 people attended these concerts in the Town Hall, and a very new audience for us, an audience not known to us. I want to say just a little bit about Toi Whitiki. Our aims are strongly aligned with the goals of Auckland Council in this respect. Though we are a national organisation, we're based in Parnell. Most of the jobs we generate are here in Auckland. A lot of our activities are in Auckland, and we contribute as a major player on the Auckland arts scene. We work with Auckland Live, Auckland Museum, Auckland Council's Arts, Culture and Events team, the APO and Auckland Arts Festival. We're also members of the Parnell Business Association and active in other Auckland networks, such as the UNESCO City of Music Initiative. This will further strengthen under our new strategic agenda. Now, this is a visual that we do need. It represents the sources of our income. It's based on revenue of 7.6 million for the last year. Central government funding from CNZ, in light blue on the right, is the largest single source of funding for us at 34%. Self-generated revenue from box office, corporate sponsorship, trusts and foundations, towards the left there, and our benefactors total 48%. And this council, through the ARAFB, provides 14% of our overall revenue. 47% of our audiences are in Auckland. So of the 1.1 million of council funding last year, we paid a significant amount back to Auckland Live, over 327,000, and to the APO. So in conclusion, we're very grateful to Auckland Council for funding New Zealand Opera via the ARFEB, and we look forward to reporting back to you on the increased opportunities for Aucklanders and how we reached out beyond the CBD to our diverse community. We appreciate that time is tight, but wish to emphasise that we're open to engaging with you at any time of the year. Finally, I'd like to say, please come and see Turn of the Screw at the ASB Waterfront Theatre in October. It stars 3 young Aucklanders from Christenstool who are singing alongside Kiwi singers working on the international stage in an amazing opera by Benjamin Britten. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Matt or Shona or Stefan, anything to add? No? Okay. Right, questions? And Councillor Casey.
Thank you for that. 2 questions, both of them relating to women. The first one of your early comments was that the opera was promoting the role that women play in effecting revolutionary change. Love to hear more about that. And secondly, the opera for one, I'd like to know details of how that makes women feel safe getting to your shows.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm happy to take both those questions. The first question about the role of women in opera is a huge subject. Catherine Clément, a French philosopher, wrote a book called Opera or the Undoing of Women, in which she pointed out that most operas end with their heroines being stabbed or dying some horrendous death, usually at the hands of their male counterparts. But there is another theory as well, which is that oftentimes men end up equally in a bad state at the ends of operas. In fact, at the end of Hamlet, everybody dies, apart from Fortinbras.
It take a long time to do it.
It's more notes. But there are artists working in the world whose practice is about uncovering the hidden messages in operas. And I'll just give you one example. Mozart wrote The Marriage of Figaro. It's based on a play by Beaumarchais. In the Beaumarchais play, Figaro has a number of revolutionary speeches in which he talks about the fact that he, as a servant, doesn't have the same access to life, to education, to wealth, as his master, the Count. By the time Mozart writes that opera, he takes out the revolutionary speeches from Figaro's mouth because he's not going to get them past the emperor who funds him. And remember, this opera is written 3 years before the French Revolution, which in itself had a very strong proto-feminist strand to it, to its writings. So by taking the revolutionary talk out of the mouth of the man, of Figaro, whose wedding it is, he basically leaves the women to get on with driving the narrative. The net result of that is that it's an opera in which women drive the narrative, and the central metaphor for revolutionary and social change is when the two women, the Countess and the servant Susanna, change clothes. So we will... taking that sort of idea about the opera, I've invited Lindy Hume, whose practice is in feminist opera productions, and she's been working a cycle of productions that explore that aspect of Mozart's operas. I've invited her to come to Aotearoa, New Zealand, and uncover the hidden layers. I could go on, but I can't remember the second part of your question now.
I think you've answered
Opera for one. Opera for one. It's many people are interested in opera, but maybe at a point in their life where they feel a little awkward turning up to an opera on their own. Much as I'd like to, we don't take responsibility for people getting to the theatre and back again. But we can take responsibility for their experience when they arrive at the theatre, and we identified that a number of people don't come to the opera, even though they'd like to, because they don't want to hang around in the foyer feeling awkward. So we invited them to come and take a free ice cream and have a drink in the VIP room. And what we found was that a number of people, we actually had a group, not of one but of 8, who had seen the offer, and they were all in their 80s, and individually they'd been afraid, you know, really to kind of venture out and to... but together they felt more comfortable.
Thank you, Thomas. Very eloquent answers. I noticed there's no follow-up questions, Councillor Casey. I have a question. I'm just referring to this map here. You mentioned that 47% effectively of your audience or your performances are in Auckland, and we're paying 14%, which we're more than happy about, by the way. But 53% of your whatever productions are outside Auckland, and yet you're only picking up 2% from other local authorities. Now, Creative New Zealand is pan-New Zealand, but that's fine. But what about those other local authorities where you go to, Wellington, Christchurch, Dunedin, whatever? Why are they not putting in more than 2% they should be actually 14 or 15%. Why is that not the case?
Absolutely. I'd love to travel with you, Councillor, to Wellington and Christchurch. We're having that conversation. There are several reasons. One is that the council in Wellington and Christchurch is much smaller than this council, so it makes tapping into the pockets of money in the many different councils, for example, in the Wellington area, more challenging. Also, I think it's fair to say that historically, as a national organisation, we engage with both Wellington and Christchurch, but we have a lot of work to do in persuading both those cities that this opera company is as much for them as it is for Auckland. And so the range of activity here is much greater, and it's much less there. So that's a dialogue that is ongoing, and at the moment, as part of our new strategic agenda, we've put forward proposals for an increased presence in Wellington and Christchurch and in regions in between, in South Island and the North Island, and an accompanying proposal for what sort of funding would be necessary from those areas, not necessarily just through councils, but also through benefactors, businesses, and other individuals to help support that activity.
You could possibly remind them that they benefit from, or especially Wellington, from heavy subsidisation of the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra as compared to the APO up here, and needless to say, Te Papa gets a sweet ride compared to the museum sector outside. But anyway, that's just some added things you could lobby for.
It's a point well taken, thank you.
Any other questions, Councillor? No, that was really excellent, Thomas, and we're sorry about whatever is happening with the slideshow, but a very good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, I think we've got the Auckland Philharmonia Orchestra, who get a disproportionate lack of funds compared to the NZ Symphony Orchestra. Lee, Richard and Barbara, welcome. And who's going to lead off? Lee? Oh, you might want to introduce Lee to everyone, just in case. Just press the button, Lee. Yep, the right-hand one. Yep.
Hi. Mr Mayor, Mr Deputy Mayor, Chair, Councillors and officials, thank you for the opportunity. I'm here representing obviously the APO. Apologies from Geraint Martin, who is back with his role in Te Papa. I have to say he's very happy with his increase in the budget that was recently announced. He will explain to you that it's his first real increase since 1980 or whatever. So
well, he could be doing more on lobbying for the APO while he's in Wellington.
Indeed. Could I introduce Richard Ebbett, who's been a trustee along with myself for some time. In fact, he's been much longer than me. And Barbara Glasser, who's well known to you as the Chief Executive. Can I, before I ask Barbara to speak, can I just acknowledge the support of the Auckland Council over many years, and can I acknowledge the RAFA board and acknowledge Vern Walsh, who is stepping down shortly. We've had a long relationship with the RAFA. Sometimes it's robust, but I have to say the relationship is a good sound one, and we are continuing to work with them over the issues that may or may not come up today. So with that, I'll ask Barbara to do the presentation. Then I'm going to ask Richard just to raise an issue, which I know has been a question that's been put to us over a period of time, just to explain where we're up to with the RAFA board.
Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you, and kia ora everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'd like to just start by reiterating Lee's point that without the funding that we receive from Auckland Council through the RAFA board, we simply wouldn't be here, and it's been a huge help for us over the last 10 years to actually be able to grow and develop in the way that we have. So some highlights from, how do I change the slides? Does anyone know?
You can tell me. You just indicate and Sandra will...
Oh, wave?
Yep.
Okay, so next one, thank you. and the next one as well. So 2018 highlights. We did 71 concerts last year, including 11 full houses, reaching over 53,000 people in venues from local churches to Auckland Town Hall to venues in North, South and West Auckland. We had 197,000 people watching our live streams from 122 countries. So in a very real way, we're actually putting Auckland on the global stage, which is something we're very proud of. We constantly get feedback from all over the world about how well these live streams are going down. Last year, we did our first international co-commission with the BBC. We had a new Ross Harris work that was played in Auckland by the APO 1 week on the Town Hall stage and the following week at the Barbican in London with the BBC Symphony Orchestra. It was a great way to, again, take New Zealand to the world in a way that we could do it without leaving home. And we had fantastic response from that and fantastic reports about people waking up to the fact that New Zealand has so much to offer culturally. One of the things I'm most proud of from last year was our significant celebration of women winning the right to vote in New Zealand with a special concert that we put on very close to the anniversary of the first vote taking place. We had a female conductor, all female soloists, all female composers, and a raft of really high achieving New Zealand women ranging in age from about 17 through to older, presenting on stage, talking about the achievements of women in New Zealand. It was really inspirational, and again, we had fantastic feedback. As a business, we have been doing well. We've had a growth in sponsorship and philanthropy, 5% in each case, and we had generally a really good year last year. The next one, please. So our income, again, we've brought copies of last year's annual report to leave for you all, and our income is ticket sales. For last year, for the first time, we exceeded 100% of our ambitious targets. We're always aware of the need and the desire to self-generate as much as possible. Our ticket income has actually gone up 15% over the last 5 years, and our sponsorship's been growing by 5% per annum over the last 8 years or so. Philanthropy also has had an increase. We've been really focusing on individual major giving, and that's really paid off. We put a little bit more resource into that department a couple of years ago, and it's really paying dividends for us now, which is really fantastic. So just a few highlights of the point up until now. We did an opera in concert performance of Verdi's Aida last year, which brought the house down. It was a full house and we had 53,000 people watching it online. We did a wonderful performance of the Bach St Matthew Passion with Stephen Layton, who's a world-renowned Baroque expert, and the orchestra really achieved, again, a lot by working with him. We did a performance of Messiaen's Tarangalila Symphony, which we did as part of the Auckland Arts Festival and in collaboration with the Australian National Academy of Music. They paid for and flew over 25 musicians, and it enabled us to have an orchestra of over 100 on stage, and it was a really wonderful experience, and again really raised awareness of who the APO is and the level that we achieve with a lot of the young musicians in Australia who, and in fact ANAM has about a third New Zealanders studying over there, so it was a really nice bridge building exercise as well as a fantastic concert. And we played with Teeks, and that was a sold out concert in Auckland Town Hall earlier this year, really successful as well. Just recently, we did 2 sellout performances of Planet Earth 2, which was a partnership with the BBC and with Auckland Live, and we were very proud of what that achieved in the Aotea Centre. It was a fantastic evening and really broadened our base of ticket buyers. We had a lot of people there who wouldn't consider themselves traditional concert goers, so that was very successful. I'll just talk about one of the other initiatives that we started last year, and that is we track how we are appealing to the different demographics in Auckland, and we realised that we had a bit of a gap in family concerts. So we do a lot for schools and a lot for young children, but then we realised that we didn't have a product specifically geared for kids from say 9 to about 14. So we introduced we introduced these new programs, particularly the ones that you can see in the middle, the Gruffalo and the Composer is Dead. So the APO for Kids concert on either side, they're low-cost concerts that are specifically geared around kids. The Gruffalo and the Composer is Dead were not so low cost. They're more sort of standard ticket prices, but we realised that there is probably a market there for families and for people to be able to bring their children, some at discounted rates, but a lot not. So we're looking at that as a way of growing our income and our ticket buying public in that sort of middle age area. Not middle age area, middle new word age area of young people, and that's working really well for us. We're still experimenting with the format. Some things are going better than others, but overall we do believe it's a growth area and one that we're keen to continue to develop. We sold out 2 performances of the Gruffalo and the Gruffalo's Child in the Aotea Centre, and we took the orchestra to the North Shore for a repeat family concert of The Composer is Dead, so that was really good too. Standing alongside our main stage concerts, we're really committed to our education program, and the theme that you can see there, Music Opens Minds, is one that we really strongly believe in. And we just thought we'd show you a bit of a fun pictorial on the next slide of some of the things that we achieved last year in APO Connecting. So our friends made over 400 egg sandwiches, which were eaten at our summer school. We had 5,217 subsidised school concert tickets. So they were ones where we apply separately for funding to bring children in who wouldn't otherwise be able to go to concerts. And that's as part of our Connecting with Music concert, our Kiwi Capers concert, and some of our APOP schools memberships benefit from that, from funds that we raise. The buses that brought kids to concerts travelled over 2,500 kilometres to get them there. So our Connecting program has both depth and reach, and we're really proud of that. And for the first time, we've been involved with a Māori school, and you can see one of the comments up there from one of the schools, and they're really proud to be associated with the orchestra in the way that they are. I'll just read out one of the things that one of the teachers said. They said, "This is the first time in our kura history that we've ever been invited to participate. But it was more than our project. The students were privileged to be able to perform in front of an audience with a 90-piece orchestra supporting them. David and the team were excellent to work with and very friendly." We also had a collaboration between this quarter school and St Kentigern College, so we're really working to try and bridge gaps across Auckland as well. So they said collaborating with St Kentigern College was new territory for us, as we had to get familiar with a different environment of students as well as them experiencing Māori customs. So it was really a cultural bridge building exercise as far as we were concerned, in using music as a way to bridge this gap, which we were really proud of. So just one more quote that I'll read you from one of our summer school participants. She says, "Each year I learn even more about how to play in an ensemble, and my musicianship skills continue to develop each time I attend this summer school. For me, the improvement between the first and last rehearsal is so satisfying, and during the day of the concert I find myself realising exactly how far we've come in such a short time. The first note of the initial rehearsal never fails to entrance me and reminds me of how wonderful it is to play with talented musicians that all love music as much as I do." So that's really inspiring. I'll just talk briefly about how we respond to a changing Auckland, which I know is something that we, as part of the Auckland plan, that we need to and we want to address. I'll preface that by saying that APO is on one of the Auckland as a UNESCO City of Music committees, and we're very proud and pleased to be able to help draw attention to the fact that music can be a really defining aspect of what it is to be in a city, and to really help build the brand of Auckland. So we've been focusing recently on developing our Asian audiences. We're really aware that a lot of young kids learn musical instruments at school and at home, and we're not yet seeing them fully in the concert hall. So we're really focusing on that at the moment as a way to grow our audience. We've introduced a series of 3 concerts curated by one of our Chinese musicians. The concerts are presented presented in Mandarin and in English, and then we're now trying to transition. We've been doing that for a couple of years, and we're now working closely with people from the Chinese community and a Chinese marketing strategy to try and transition those people into attending main stage concerts. So that's been really satisfying. We're also really aware that the fastest growing demographic in Auckland is actually the ageing population. By 2036, 2 in 9 Aucklanders will be over 65. So these are people often who have supported the orchestra for their whole lives, and we believe that we are also there to serve them, and we do that a lot through our main stage concerts. However, we're also really focusing on developing a younger audience, and we've introduced a new membership program called APO Go. We started it in 2018, and we had 190 memberships by the end of the year, with 271 tickets sold to those members. Currently, as of June 2019, we've got 211 memberships, so already more than the total of last year, and we're already up to 243 memberships. So we're looking at really smashing those targets already on an annual basis. So we're really pleased with how that's going. We often try and seat the young people so that they don't feel isolated, and where possible we can seat them together, and there's becoming a real sort of club feeling around it, which is really exciting and really fantastic. Just overall, this picture just shows how the top line is Auckland's ethnicity profile, and then beneath that are our education program profile. So you can just see that in a lot of what we're doing, we're matching very closely to the demographic of Auckland, and that's been quite a deliberate strategy for us. So the next slide just shows some of the work we're doing in the Māori community. We're producing teaching resource in Te Reo. We're looking at redesigning some of our school uniforms and scarves and things with those designs in mind. And we've just commissioned a Māori composer whose work is being performed at the end of next week in our APO community program. Future exciting projects. Well, we turn 40 next year, so it's a really fantastic time to be celebrating what the APO's achieved over that time. We've got a number of initiatives in mind for that, in planning stages for that. We'll be doing a special birthday concert during the year and a number of other things that I can't tell you about yet because we haven't done our season launch. So wait until September and you'll find out all about the exciting things we have in store for next year. You'll all be aware that we also have in planning, and subject of course to council approval, the proposed AOT studios, and we're very excited to be looking at the potential to really develop Auckland as a thriving artistic metropolis as that comes to fruition. So very happy to take questions. Oh no, Richard was going to just talk about something first. Thank you.
Thanks, Barb, and good morning. Barb's painted a picture of great progress and success for the orchestra, and I think you'll see from it that we've got a very aggressive management and organisational capability, but the success has been underpinned by our music director and players continuing to strive for artistic excellence. In fact, as a non-musician, I'm continually struck by how much pressure the players put themselves under to be the best players they possibly can. This momentum, built up over 40 years, needs to be maintained, and part of this will be a review of player remuneration, or as the players are increasingly call it, a correction of under-remuneration. The Regional Amenities Funding Board is well aware of this, and we're on the point of jointly commissioning an independent review of our organisational efficiency, effectiveness and future funding strategy to see what options we have to correct the situation. And that's really a shot across your bows, but that's all I wanted to say on that.
Thank you, Richard. I think councillors, in the letter from myself and Councillor Simpson on your behalf to the Arafa board was to show dig a little bit deeper on the issue of remuneration in the arts area. So their joint work that has been initiated by Arafa has been noted and appreciated too.
Thank you.
Right, councillors. Councillor Casey.
Two questions, one on that. You did come last time and talk about the very same issue. I'm interested in the impacts of that low pay. Are you able to keep your players? Are you able to attract enough players and keep them? My second question was to go back to the kids' slide with the egg sandwiches. Is that a question about something that was on it, if you could?
Okay. Do you want to answer the first question, Barbara?
Okay, so Sorry, I can answer the first question. It does take us a really long time to fill vacancies sometimes. I mean, so the effect on the people that are already in the orchestra is that, I mean, morale is one obvious effect. They don't feel a lot of self-respect. They don't feel like that we're remunerating them appropriately for what they're doing. But more than that, they're often having to run themselves absolutely ragged, filling in extra, to doing extra jobs to actually just keep paying the rent and keep food on the table. So, for example, I know that a lot of our players will teach all day on a Sunday starting at 8:30 in the morning because they just have to do that to just keep living, basically. So there's real lifestyle elements there, and that they're often really, really exhausted because they've just got to actually stretch themselves so far. And there is a point where, because they have to do that, they're just exhausted when they come to work to do the job, that their full-time playing job. So it is having an impact on us. And in terms of attracting and retaining players, I mean, we've had 4 people retiring from the orchestra this year, and we're in different rounds of auditions, and it's not easy to fill jobs. I mean, we get a lot of talented players who are interested, but as soon as they find out what the remuneration levels are, they don't show up for the audition. And so then when we do run the auditions, we just don't find people of suitable standard. So we've had a principal cello vacancy now for about 6 years. So we just can't find anybody good enough who'll come for the money. So that answers, I think that answers that question. I'm not sure what the question on the slide.
Something about a German Shepherd. I just...
Okay.
The one with the German Shepherd.
The German Shepherd.
There,
That
regular
one.
German Shepherd concert attendee.
We do.
Do what?
Well, it's a guide dog. Is that the one?
One regular German. It's the blind man.
Yeah, so we have a blind person who attends all of our concerts with his guide dog, and depending on what type of soloist it is, either the dog will stay in the hall, but if it's a violin or a trumpet, the German Shepherd gets too excited. So we have to... The front of house staff are really fantastic about actually looking after him. It's really sweet. But they're absolutely passionate supporters of the orchestra. We actually have had newspaper articles about it.
Councillor Walker, Wayne Walker.
I may have missed it, but in respect of the analysis and the study that you're doing, are you making some comparisons with the National Symphony Orchestra as it goes to remuneration and other factors?
We have tried to do that. We've certainly got comparisons that where we can get our hands on the exact numbers from the Australian orchestras, and we have done that, and we've benchmarked ourselves against the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra because Adelaide is the same size city, the orchestra is the same size, the staff is the same size, and the budget is just $2 million more from funding. So basically, New Zealand Symphony is trickier to find out their salary levels. We've tried, and they're not forthcoming with that information due to contractual reasons. I mean, we can make some surmising from their annual reports, which we have. It's a little bit difficult to sort of nail that to the post because we don't really know the detail, and it's not our business to know the detail, I would say.
To that would it be constructive if you had some support from the council around matters that go to that? Because one of the bigger issues that we face across a number of entities is that arguably because of Auckland's size and scale, we are providing facilities and running operations that have a national focus, but we're reliant on our funding base, when arguably we could and should be attracting more of a national funding basis. It goes not just to, obviously, your operation, but the stadiums that we operate, some of which we have an interest in.
We won't get into stadiums.
No, but I'm just generating the larger context, and it's a conversation that we need to have with the government.
I think, Councillor Walker, I think Rafa, our agent, effectively is initiating all those conversations and certainly working on our behalf following the instruction that we've given them this year to dig a bit deeper. So, thank you, team. That's a really colourful presentation. I will say the graph that shows the APO connecting demographics, that's really impressive as the figures you're showing there, and I don't think any of us can complain from any of the Pacific or Maori communities and Asian that you're not reaching out. So,
No, we're really doing our best, and we really do take seriously our role as an orchestra for all of Auckland.
Right. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Richard. Much appreciated. Right. We now have Auckland Theatre. We have Anna and Colin and Natasha. And whoever's leading off, if they can just introduce the others as well as herself. Welcome.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Anna Cameron toko ingoa, ko te kaiwhakahaere o te Auckland Theatre Company ahau. Good morning, councillors, members and representatives of the Independent Māori Statutory Board. My name is Anna Cameron. I'm the General Manager of Auckland Theatre Company. I'd like to introduce Colin McColl, Artistic Director of Auckland Theatre Company.
Atamare.
And Natasha Pearce, our Executive Administrator of ATC.
Morena.
I bring apologies from our Chair, Gordon Moller, and from Director Vivian Bridgewater. Both very much wanted to be here today, but they are unable to do so due to being out of town. Firstly, I would like to record a huge vote of thanks to the Auckland Regional Amenities Funding Board for the significant annual funding investment in Auckland Theatre Company, and to Auckland Council for the city's capital contribution to help realise building the ASB Waterfront Theatre. The adage that we simply could not do what we do without your support is 100% true, and we hope that this presentation today demonstrates the benefits and return on investment to the ratepayers of Tamaki Makaurau. 2018 was ATC's 25th theatre season of productions and our second full year of operation in our new home, the ASB Waterfront Theatre. ATC attracted over 120,000 attendees and participants to 851 different events. To help champion and support a broad range of performing arts experiences for the people of Auckland, we have developed programming partnerships with a range of arts partners, including Te Rehia Theatre Company, Black Grace Dance Company, Pacific Dance New Zealand, Auckland Arts Festival, New Zealand Opera, the Royal New Zealand Ballet, New Zealand International Film Festival, Prayas Theatre Company of South Asia, as well as a range of independent performing arts companies. In 2018, our open house program supported 148 days of free rehearsal time for 219 participants, and we continue to offer free rehearsal space at our studios on Dominion Road to a broad range of theatre makers from across the city and region. In 2018, ATC employed 240 actors, creatives and crew. As part of our Māori partnership strategy, in 2018, we commissioned Māori playwrights Albert Bells and Tainui Tukiwaho to develop a contemporary adaptation of a classic text. And in 2019, we developed our partnership with Te Rehia Theatre to deliver Albert Bells' Astro Man as part of the 2019 Auckland Arts Festival. The kaupapa at the heart of these partnerships is to support Māori theatre makers and seek new ways to engage Māori audiences for theatre in Auckland. We are moving into our next project with Te Rehia Theatre, which will tour to schools as part of our Mythmakers series later this year. In 2020, we are working with Māori playwright and director Katie Wolfe, and we will continue to build new audiences. We offer all visiting companies to the ASB Waterfront Theatre an official welcome in the form of a mihi whakatau, and the ATC team are regularly welcoming companies to our pou whakamau māharatanga mō Māui tiki tiki a Taranga. ATC has also achieved strongly against our Pacific engagement strategy, continuing to tour Pacific work, Still Life with Chickens and the Eland Sena throughout Auckland and beyond. Pacific Dance New Zealand launched their 2019 festival at the ASB Waterfront Theatre 2 weeks ago, followed by the premiere of a new Pacific dance work. In November last year, ATC partnered with Black Grace to present the Gorilla Collection, a 3-day creative festival that took place throughout the entire building, featuring Pacific artists from different disciplines who were looking at Tamaki Makaurau in 30 years' time from a Pacific creative perspective. ATC will invest in the Gorilla Collection again in 2020. Through delivery of our partnership programs, we're beginning to see a broader representation of cultures and communities at the ASB Waterfront Theatre. And while the ATC subscriber base remains loyal to ATC's core program, it is very rewarding for us to see the step change in the audiences attending the theatre. Continuing with the theme of partnership, diversity and inclusion, we are currently working with South Asian cultural group Prayas Theatre Company to present A Fine Balance, which is currently playing at Q Theatre. In addition to our arts partners, the ASB Waterfront Theatre is attracting regular business from corporate clients, including meetings, conferences and events. In 2018, ATC's Creative Learning Program engaged 228 schools, over 1,300 participants, and over 18,000 audience members, across hundreds of activities, either free or low cost, with 46% of schools that we presented our Mythmakers tour to in 2017 and 2018 being Decile 1 and 2. As part of our youth arts program, we present the annual Here and Now Arts Festival, giving younger theatre makers the opportunity to present their work at the ASB Waterfront Theatre. Across 2018 and 2019, an audience of just under 4,000 people saw 6 new pieces of theatre presented by ethnically and gender diverse youth, including, and we increased our audiences by 51% between those 2 years, 2018 and 2019, for the Here and Now festivals. Our school's matinee program, with accompanying workshops for students and teachers and resources that we produce, continue to be very well subscribed. ATC has had a big staffing change, with Chief Executive Lester McGrath departing the company in January of this year. We have a new Chief Executive, Jonathan Bielski, taking up the reins mid-July, and I will stay on with the company as Executive Director. We recently completed a Toi Tōtara funding application to Creative New Zealand to hopefully secure our next 6 years of funding. We successfully secured further funding from Foundation North for this year. 2018 has not been without its challenges for ATC. We lost money on our theatre program in 2018, and we have successfully negotiated with the Theatre Foundation to address this deficit. This year looks like a return to financial form, and we have been exceeding our box office revenue throughout the year, which is very encouraging. We also lost money operating the ASB Waterfront Theatre. After 2 years of operation, it is clear it needs an operating subsidy to be sustainable. We have a $4.9 million ground rent payable in December 2021 to Panuku, and we have begun to scenario plan for this eventuality. For ATC's future sustainability, we are focused on creating capability and value in the sector. We are looking at how ATC's resource can continue to support others. We are engaging with Contemporary Auckland. We are developing our partnership model and our role in the Wynyard Quarter. We are developing a new programming framework which will assist the company to diversify its program offer. And we are developing a digital strategy which will operate on a number of different levels. We are committed to broadening cultural and language perspectives across the company. We are advocating for the employment of leadership Māori and Pacific roles within the organisation to help increase public engagement with Ngā Toi Māori and Pacific performing arts. I would like to underscore our vote of thanks to the Funding Board and to Auckland Council. Your investment in Auckland Theatre Company and the ASB Waterfront Theatre ensures that we can demonstrate sector leadership and provide a vibrant home for contemporary theatre works of scale and significance that reflect multicultural Auckland. Ngā mihi nui ki a koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Thank you, Anna.
Very happy to take questions. Thank you.
Questions? Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank you for your presentation, Morena. I'm interested, do you keep any data as to how people arrive at the theatre? The reason I ask that is the Central Bus network is nearly a year old, and of course we now have a public transport bus that pretty much every 15 minutes will drop people right outside your theatre. And I just wondered if that had an impact on attendance versus potentially the pre-book car parking, etc. Do you keep a record of how people get to where you go?
We are not currently surveying who's using the bus. We do track the attendance of the car park because that's ours to book and to run. The transport down at the Wynyard Quarter is a challenging situation for us with the amount of construction going on down there at the moment. But it's definitely something we could consider, yeah.
So through you, Mr. Chair, so the point I'm making is, your attendance at theatre was down, and I think that could potentially be because it's just such a nightmare down there. So
yeah,
the
really
public transport option is is actually helping. I cannot be bothered parking down there, so if I just catch a bus, I'll just turn up upside, So potentially in your promotion, I'm just asking you to maybe consider that and look at ways of reminding people that there is now a bus option, especially for people from a particular ward that frequent your theatre.
If I just may add to what Anna has said, we don't track how people attend, but we do promote the bus routes that do go to Wynyard Quarter, the 75, the 20, as well as the City Link. We have also had several unsolicited comments from people about how convenient the 75 bus in particular is. We do know that a number of people also get the Northern Express and hop off on Victoria Street and walk down. So, and also our 6:30 p.m. performances apparently coincide very nicely with the ferry schedule, so which are early week performances. So we are aware that we need to increase awareness of public transport options to get to the theatre, and we have seen some anecdotal increase in use of those options. So the more bus routes we can get that go into Wynyard Quarter, the better.
Yeah, it was always going to be a bit of a challenge there. So Councillor Wayne Walker.
Just picking up on the information around your financials and the relationship between the financials and obviously patronage and so on.
Councillor Walker, can you just bring your speaker forward?
Sure.
Yes.
And I'm also picking up on the issues that you're raising around, I think, the ground rent situation and the like, which is obviously going to have some impact. So are there scenarios that you're developing that enable you to meet those financial commitments? And assuming those scenarios would also go to patronage and obviously success around productions and the like.
Yes, with regards to the ground lease, we have 4 scenarios that we're currently planning through and doing the numbers on. There's no easy answer to the 4 million that's payable December 2021, but it's going to look like a balance of borrowing the money and trying to raise whatever we can, but it is pretty much the most unsexiest ask you could ever want to raise money for the ground lease. So we're not. The strategy to get it is complicated. We're working through it at the moment, but it's looking likely that we will need to borrow the lion's share of the ground lease.
I have Councillor Darby, then Councillor Casey and Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. Just to acknowledge you all and the theatre, all those involved. You are the preeminent place for expression of your art. And I just acknowledge the outreach programs that you're mentioning there as well. It's good to know that you're doing more than just performance on the night. So thank you. Colin, probably a question for you, and just, I don't want to be focusing too much on the deficit of last year, but the breadth of your work, I mean, it's a big social responsibility running a theatre as well. And your job is to tell the current stories, the past stories, and think about the future through theatre. And I've been unable to get along to as much as I'd like, but looking at your program, it's a program that actually takes some risks. You don't just shoot for the safe ground to get people in the door. So just maybe tell us how you navigate that in constructing your program to stay alive and relevant and with issues and ahead of issues, doing everything that a theatre needs to do without falling into a safe financial place, a safe place that actually will get so-called bottoms on the seats, but loses sight of its job to be telling Aucklanders about important issues. If that
Yes, well, that's the challenge, of course. Every year is the challenge, but we're getting the mixes right, of stuff from the international canon of work, and also encouraging local playwrights and developing their work so that the stories are very much about here and now. We're cognizant of the fact that we want to be telling stories about Auckland to Aucklanders, as well as presenting great works from the canon. So yeah, we get the balance right. We have lots of programming meetings, and throw it all around, and often even at the last minute it gets changed because something exciting comes up that we feel we just have to do. But this year's been a change of direction for us, because we've made these co-productions with independent companies, Te Rehia, and with Prayas Theatre Company, and they're really paying off in terms of introducing new audiences to Auckland Theatre Company and the work of these companies. By upping the profile of both Te Rehia and Prayas, and being able to bring the ATC machine behind it to present the work has really paid off, and both one was a sellout season, and the other, by the end of the week, will be a sellout season, I imagine, because it's selling very well, a fine balance. So it's very exciting that the new development is paying off.
Just where I'm going with that is you could run a really successful commercial operation and satisfy your accountant really well, but that wouldn't really satisfy the real mandate to take risks. And I guess I'm just wondering to just explore that, and why sometimes the shows may not be financial successes, because your mandate is to actually take some risk as well. Probably just some discussion about this.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it would be easy to just turn it into a kind of, a kind of commercial playhouse, but that's not what we're there for. We're there to give the whole range of work. And I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why people don't go to things. Sometimes they just like it for all sorts of reasons. The people who are in at the time of the year it's done, and sometimes you get it wrong, sometimes you get it fabulously right. For instance, there was a time there before we had the Waterfront Theatre where we had a play, To Kill a Mockingbird, and the Maidment had a fire and we had nowhere to put it on, and we had to go into the Civic, which is not ideal for spoken word theatre, but we went in there anyway, and it was a fantastic success, played to 12,000 people, so that was a good risk to take. So yes, it's a balancing act all the time.
Councillor Casey.
I was interested to hear more about the issue of losing money on the actual place itself. What are the hidden costs that have come up since you've moved in that are now causing issues?
There have been some costs. So everything was forecast. What our discovery has been since the theatre has opened is that there are a couple of areas that carry increased costs. One is in the cleaning of the theatre, and the other is with the
Staffing.
is with the staffing of the theatre. We have to have more staff in there to meet the very stringent health and safety laws and controls that we must abide by. So those have been increased costs for us.
More on the cleaning, what's changed?
It's more just the costs have gone up. It's more that the costs have gone up, and to service the whole building, it's costing more.
Okay, Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. I guess I represent the common person more than some of the more highbrow people around the table. And I suppose for some, well, being real, so, and I'm being serious because I think that, we can, sometimes people just want to go out and have a bit of fun. And I just, I hope there's a balance between we've got to have the, intellectual message and academic, where that doesn't, for a huge lot of people, that doesn't attract them. But they'd love to go to a show of some kind, and they might not want to go to Sky City but sometimes it's just about having some fun, and there's always a message, etc. But I just hope there is a balance, because not everybody studied English literature or the arts at university, and I think that can be a thing that puts people off. But then the other thing I really wanted to talk about was in terms of, because I represent Waitakere at the bulk of West Auckland, along with Councillor Hulse, and I do know that some of our women come to the theatre at night and they can't get the train because the train only goes to a certain part, and they struggle with the buses and things like that. Do you ever advocate to Auckland Transport around, which I have, about lighting and things like that, and all I got back was, women perceive on their own, perceive fear, perceive danger. So I didn't get a proper answer. Is there any interest on your part in looking at, okay, if we want to get people from places that the bus isn't so easy because it's way up by the old city mission, which is quite a long way, and advocating to Auckland Transport to get a bit more lighting around some of the bus stops that will actually encourage women, or if they can feel safe to come, because I think that's one of the barriers as well, especially older women on their own.
Thank you, Councillor. Your comments are very welcome. I'll take the second part of your comments first. We have a member of our team, our marketing communications manager, sits on the Wynyard Quarter traffic management. So we have a seat at the table there. The access issues that you're outlining are of prominent importance to us, and we're working very actively on different strategies to address these issues. We're well aware of, unless there's a show on there down in the evening, the Wynyard Quarter can be quite deserted. So when the theatre is playing, we do have a lot of challenges to work through about access and transport. They're key issues for us ongoing, and we do as much as we possibly can to promote the services that are available and to work with the taxi companies. We also do provide personal concierge services to patrons on the night. So we have a very, very skilled, trained front of house team who are there to accompany, to associate and to look after patrons who are coming and going from the theatre to make sure that people leave the venue safely. Yeah. To the first part of your comments, yes, absolutely. This is the challenge that we face year on year, season on season, to achieve the right balance in our program. It is the holy grail of theatre programming. I think one of the examples that does illustrate some of the comments that Councillor Darby was also just asking about, Shortland Street, the musical. Auckland Theatre Company last year invested a lot of money in creating one of New Zealand's first large-scale musicals. Now, it was an absolutely fantastic production, high fun, a really, really good night out. I don't know if any of the councillors saw it, but I'm sure, yep, I'm sure. Yeah, so it was, we saw this as a very accessible production, something that would really kind of play to the fun aspect of a night out, really good entertainment. The reviews were stunning. There was an unprecedented marketing and publicity support for the production. It lost us a lot of money at the box office, hence my comments earlier about how we lost that money on the program. So such are the ups and downs of show business, and we continue to strive for that balance in the program. We know that our subscribers love our end of year musical. It costs a lot of money to put a musical on, and we need it, we need everything to be breaking even or making us a small surplus if we can. So we'll continue to strive for that balance in the program, but your comments are really welcome. Thank you.
Right, councillors. Perhaps you should also be promoting that Britomata's 400 metres away on a very well lit scene, and we're putting in a new bridge across there, so the bridge will never fall down. So it's not far and it's very well lit, and that's where we're trying to get people to go on to. Although buses is number one, we're trying to get more and more people onto rail, so whether it's the west or the east or south or whatever. Lime scooters.
Yeah.
Right, thank you, Anna, thank you, Colin, and thank you, Natasha, much appreciated, and continue the good work. You have a lovely theatre to work with anyway. Right, John and Jonathan, Auckland Arts Festival. And I'm assuming that you're going to lead off, John? Welcome.
Thank you. Very briefly, because I thought, given this will be the last time Jonathan appears before you in this guise, as opposed to next time he'll be here with ATC, just like you saw Shona before, who's usually here sitting with us, who was there with the opera company. We keep sending people to other places to hopefully do good work and improve where they go. It's not certainly because we wanted to lose them. So I've asked Jonathan to comment on the last festival. I'll comment on one or two things at the end, and then we can open up for questions.
Atamare e te whānau, tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Jonathan Bielski and I am the Artistic Director of the Auckland Arts Festival. I just want to start off by acknowledging you, Mr Chair, and your worship and councillors, particularly also to acknowledge the work of the Auckland Regional Amenities Funding Board and their erstwhile and esteemed outgoing Chair Vern for his great service in steering that complex beast through to handing it on in good order to Anita and Catherine, and we welcome them into their leadership roles on the board. Also acknowledge Mana Whenua and Ngāti Whātua o Arake. I want to just give you a quick overview of the festival this year. and then just have a quick look towards next year and what might be on offer. This was the 11th Auckland Arts Festival in its current guise, and when it was reconstituted at the turn of the millennium. And we had a very pleasing result across many fronts, both financial, artistic, creative, and whether we were working with young people or community artists or bringing international shows to Auckland in the four corners of the city, working in different venues and in community facilities. We had a really great year and a very high level of engagement, which we were very pleased in. It was a return to form for us financially after the 2018 festival. We had a troubling result, but this year we managed to come out the end in the black and are working our way back. As a result of 2018, we approached the festival with a more modest outlook, and we were able to deliver on that, in fact over-deliver on it, which we were very pleased with. We saw perhaps the most, around this precinct at least, the most significant manifestation of the festival was the return of the Spiegel tent. We had our highest selling show in the Spiegel tent ever with Blanc de Blanc, which is an international circus and burlesque show. At this point, I'd like to acknowledge that halfway through the festival, the Christchurch terrorist attack occurred, which had a devastating impact on the festival as well as the nation. And the festival's artists and staff grappled with that moment as best as they could. This was one of those times when there's no rule book and no one knows what to do and no one knows where to go. But in trusting the audiences and the artists, we found our way through it. And managed to mark the moment as only artists possibly can. Under a few sort of key headings, I guess, that I think encapsulate what it is that Auckland Arts Festival offers the community, I just want to reflect on some of the things that we did in 2019. So as a global city, Auckland Arts Festival offers the opportunity for us to have the kind of cultural amenity that you could expect in any other global city, and this is really the presentation of great international artists who are working today here in our city. The flagship event around that this year was from Berlin, The Magic Flute, which was a dazzling opera production that was presented at the Aotea Centre and partnered up with the Auckland Philharmonia Orchestra, who played in the pit. Some 6,000 people came along to that, and it was an outstanding presentation of a very accessible opera in a very dazzling new production. We were very proud to have made that a success, both creatively and also meeting our budget targets for it. In the last week of the festival, we welcomed from Shanghai, the Shanghai Dramatic Arts Centre, who created a new production of The Dreamer, which was a merging of two stories from the Peony Pavilion and Midsummer Night's Dream to create a new production, which we had at the Civic Theatre. And then in the rest of our international program, we had a mixture of voices from different parts of the world, from South Africa with A Man of Good Hope, from Scotland with Ulster American, and notably also in this venue in the Auckland Town Hall, we were pleased to see the New Zealand debut of the Silk Road Ensemble, who are sort of world music superstars, and they worked with the blind and low vision community in Auckland, young musicians who are training, who have sight impairments, and they came along to the concert and worked with the musicians and then attended and spent some time with them, such as the generosity of those artists. My second heading that I've chosen here today is to say Aotearoa's best, so the best of New Zealand artists showcased in the festival alongside of those globally significant artists. Our major commission in 2018 was As It Stands, a new work by the Muscle Mouth Dance Collective, and they premiered their production at the ASB Waterfront Theatre. At the heart of the festival's work with New Zealand artists is partnership and working with existing, is primarily Auckland, but also national arts companies. And so it was a thrill to partner up again with Silo Theatre for them to showcase their thrilling new production of Wild Dogs Under My Skirt, directed by Anapala Palataivo, by a work from Tutiata Avi. Also working, as we've heard earlier before, with Auckland Theatre Company on Astro Man at the Q Theatre. A New Zealand success story, The Trick of the Light, who perform all over the world, have a very famous production for young people called The Bookbinder, and it had been all over New Zealand but had never come to Auckland, so we were able to right a wrong and bring that production here for Auckland families. And two other significant achievements in the festival that I wanted to note was really quite delightful to be able to partner with the APO for them to be able to realise a long-held dream to perform the 20th century masterpiece Turangalila by Olivier Messiaen. This is a work that hadn't been able to perform, and it's a great way of demonstrating the kinds of capacity that the festival can offer local arts companies to be able to stretch and to be ambitious. And I must say and acknowledge the vision of the APO in creating an event with Turangalila rather than simply a concert, and the sort of triumphant performance that we received from our magnificent musicians. And then at the Auckland Art Gallery, headlining the visual arts program was Pacific Sisters, acknowledging 25 years of their practice. And although the exhibition was created at Te Papa with a particularly Auckland group of artists and a very Auckland exhibition, we were thrilled to be able to host it. New in 2018 was the Toitu Te Reo strand of the program, and this was about us being able to uplift and normalise the use of Te Reo Māori within the festival, to use the festival as a creative platform for everyday use of our first language. And the festival has a long tradition of work by Māori artists, but using the festival as a platform for the reo was a first time for us. And there were many parts to this program, and I'll just highlight a couple, which was the introduction of bilingual materials in our marketing communications, the development of a language plan with the Māori Language Commission, our first production exclusively in the reo, which toured around Auckland schools, and free performances, production of Te Kuia Me Te Aponga Wera Wera by Patricia Grace from Takirua Productions. And then our free opening event, a public waiata singing event, Tira, which was live streamed from the festival headquarters in Aotea Square and watched by people all around the city. And then Toko Reo Waiata, which is a celebration of singing of waiata and Māori song and artists in the town hall, which came a day after the Christchurch terrorist attack, and was, as often happens with art, it is a serendipity to its occurrence, and it was a night of extraordinary healing and expression of emotions. And it was quite an emotionally affecting occasion to be led by Māori through that particular moment on that night. And then reaching across Auckland, the festival continues to find ways to get out of the CBD with work and experiences that are for local communities. We recognise not everyone can make their way into town, and so this year we toured a free production called Ka Tito O, which was an exploration of Kupe's fantastical journey to New Zealand, to Aotearoa, and his exploits here in this land. This was performed at community halls and marae all around the Auckland region. In its third year, our partnership with Foundation North and Creative New Zealand with the Whānui program enabled us to do a number of community-led projects in different parts of Auckland, working in South, in East and West in particular this year. As well as partnering with suburban art galleries. This year we were able to do a new production, an exhibition installation at the Te Uru Waitakere Gallery of Blood, Water, Earth by the local artist Louise Porticky Bryant. And that particular exhibition is now going on to the Tauranga Art Gallery and opens this weekend, and will go on to Wellington as well, which is a rather wonderful fruit of that partnership. And two final points that I'll make is just around developing our own. The festival offers an opportunity for New Zealand artists to learn from international artists and for there to be an exchange. So while the international artists are in town, we have a range of workshops and masterclasses and development opportunities for our local people that the festival provides. And then everyone is invited. We believe that whilst not everyone will want to attend the Auckland Arts Festival, and from time to time people's levels of interest will change as the program changes, it is important to us that people feel invited, and that each year we do new things that more people feel invited and more people feel included. And then there's our second year of our Pay What You Can scheme, which enabled 530 people to attend the festival for the first time and to pay anything from $0 to whatever it is that they wanted to pay, and for them to get a taste of their festival within their community. And then expanding again in 2019 was our Access program, which is where we work with advocates from Auckland's many disability communities to get members of those communities into the festival in a way in which suits them best, as well as offering them $20 tickets. And we've seen exponential growth from those community members. 2 years ago, we had less than 100 people who identified as having a disability coming through the festival. This year, we had over 700. And they're small numbers in comparison to a huge city like ours, and we know it's still a relatively small number of people who would identify as having a disability, but it's a significant growth for us, and it's as a result of the partnerships that we've been having with community advocates. So I'd finish this with a vote of thanks to our absent CEO, David Innes, who is overseas at the moment representing us in finding work for the future festival, and also with our trustees led by our chair, John Judge. We'll take your questions now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Very comprehensive. John, did you wanted to mention?
I was just going to comment. It was unfortunate when Jonathan came to see us to say he was leaving to go to ATC. He was initially contracted for 3 festivals, and by agreement we could have done another 2, and we were intending to agree that with him, but he sort of preempted that. He's worked very hard at making sure the 2020 festival, which he is still programming, will be fully programmed by the end of October, or if not, we'll continue to extract enough blood from you, I think, in time to have that done. But I think it's worth acknowledging the excellent job Jonathan's done. And I think that it's great for the city to have him move on and stay actually in the city and end up with ATC. That'll be for all of our gains, really.
Thank you. And obviously we need to give a significant vote of thanks to David as well, because he seems to spend half his life out of New Zealand and not here much at all. I have the first question, John. It's good that you're in the black this year. Are you in the black enough, or were you in the black enough to cover the red from last year?
Not quite.
Not quite?
No, not quite. And we will be slightly ahead of where we'd budgeted to be this year. And in fact, would have been, if it wasn't for the unfortunate events in Christchurch, would have been well ahead. But that event just stopped sales instantly for 2 or 3 days. So for the last 10 days of the festival. But that's the sort of thing we have to put up with. We were on a plan to somewhere between 2 and 3 years be well back in the black. I'm pretty comfortable that we'll be able to achieve that. David and Jonathan have worked very hard to make sure that happens.
And second question is it by recentering, refocusing a bit more around the Aotea precinct as compared to moving out to Wynyard Quarter, and that's been a successful return to the hub?
It has. A lot of people had missed the fact that we didn't have a Spiegel tent and weren't centred there. I think still as the Wynyard Quarter develops that we will give that another go at some stage. I think that when there is less building down there and it's more settled, that will again be a place where we'll be able to run more outside events and attract a different audience. It did mean that some of the audience that went down there we didn't get back again, but it was too expensive the first time.
Yeah, we understand that. And over time, as the CRL, I know it's going ahead 5 years, but when the CRL opens, you're going to have the Aotea station, but you've also got Britomart, which, as we mentioned earlier, has pretty good access to the Wynyard Quarter.
Absolutely, no, all those things are going to really help people attending.
Any other questions? It seems. Oh, Richard. Councillor Hill, sorry.
Yeah, just a quick thank you. I thought the festival was pretty amazing, and like you said, to have the horrendous events of Christchurch to happen in the middle, and you probably did get criticism and praise for continuing, but I think it was good. I went to some events the following week, and it was actually a really good kind of escapism of all the terribleness that was happening. But the show, I think, from the Blanc to Blanc, which was hilarious, and I think Casey, was surprised at some of the being so close to the front row there of what was on stage, but also Wild Dogs. I think Wild Dogs at the Q Theatre are probably left there feeling, I don't know it was pretty raw, but that's the kind of storytelling you want to see. Kind of if you haven't had any, especially if you haven't had that sort of those experiences, but the women on stage were really obviously sharing, pretty horrendous stories, but in a really amazing way. It was pretty, I don't know, but generally I like the Spiegel tent in the RTS Square, but that's just me. But I would say, just as a comment, and maybe I missed it, but I think we do need maybe one or two toilets for people with access issues, like around, or I know it's a cost, but to get out, even for an able-bodied person, out into the RTS centre to the bathroom and back, especially if it's raining or something, is just probably too difficult for some. So if you just had some, maybe just for people with, because it wasn't really a big deal for me to run across, but for some people who may have access issues, to go all that way in a 15-minute break was probably too hard. But apart from that, I think that the festival was amazing. And please, can we have that kind of opening porphyry every time? That was pretty phenomenal as well. And the number of people that turned up, I thought, in RTS Square for that session, which was a public session, it was really, I thought it was well done and kind of important. I hadn't noticed if you'd done something like that before, but I did this time, so thank you.
Councillor Casey, would you like to tell us about your experiences on the front row?
I had written down the comment.
I believe I heard people, I got warned to keep away from the front row. So.
It wasn't. It was, first of all, to say thank you for the experience of the festival. I think many councillors did take up your offer to attend many of the productions. It was an amazing smorgasbord of experiences. And just to come on to the adult experience that was in the Spiegel tent in Blanc de Blanc, I'm a Scottish prude, and I will never forget that night. I have never seen anything like it before, and I'm not sure I want to see anything like it again. But my goodness, it's etched in my mind. I won't tell you exactly what it is.
Don't go there. Tell us.
No.
Over lunch, maybe.
Over lunch.
All I can say is they sat me in the second row, so the man had to climb over me and stop on me.
All right, Councillor Walker, Wayne Walker.
I haven't really had a look at financials and so on, but you mentioned that the Christchurch incident obviously made a significant difference. So have you got a scenario that you're incorporating in your documentation around what if it hadn't happened and what the financials would have looked like, so that obviously each year we've got a benchmark. This was an anomaly as far as I'm concerned. So from my perspective, the benchmarking should really be against a more normal set of circumstances rather than what occurred.
Yeah, I think to answer that, when we went annual, we knew that we would, over the first few years, spend the majority of our reserves, because it required extra money to be spent to actually get everyone used to the fact that we were annual and putting on a slightly different program. That happened, except that we lost more money than we had going down to the Wynyard Quarter, so we ended up in the red. Not hugely. This year, the financial result will have a between $200,000 and $300,000 surplus, I think, when we finally at the books, which recovers roughly half of what we needed to. Very hard to estimate how much Christchurch cost us, probably about 100,000, perhaps a bit more. That's actually the second time Christchurch has been a nuisance. When the earthquake happened, the major earthquake that cost so many lives down there, was right at the start of the festival, and sales just ceased. It had a far bigger effect back then when I was first involved. So yeah, we do have scenario planning on what happens if we're several 100,000 short of where we need to be. And we take that into account in the debates around the programming that primarily David and Jonathan have, but eventually ends up with Rick Carlyon, who chairs the Finance Committee, and me as well before it goes to the board. The reality is, with any arts organisation, there'll be times when you lose money. Having been involved in arts organisations for about 30 odd years, and one doesn't always know why.
The other very quick question I've got just goes to patronage. I'd suggest that, particularly because of the annualisation, you've got a lot of repeat business. People go to the festival, they enjoy it. Have you got a database that you're tapping into that enables you to capitalise on that?
Yes, we have. A lot of those databases actually quite properly end up with the theatres. So when we're using the ATC theatre, we use their database and their members, and that's actually very successful. The same thing happens with Q, where they've got an excellent database, and equally with, if we're using the Auckland Live theatres. We have going annual. I don't think we've lost any of the patrons, which means everyone's over doubled what they were paying before. In that, and are increasing the patronage. That is a continual fight, really, to continue to get people, because it's the same people that write cheques to every one of the organisations that you also do.
Effectively, you've got access to the databases of the various parts.
Yeah, we do.
Great, thank you.
Right, thank you. And you didn't mention the weather, because that usually hits on a cycle of every 3 years. You get terrible weather, and it has affected us in the past, or you in the past. So thank you, Jonathan, and good luck in your new role. And thank you, John, for your unstinting work as usual. And please pass on our thanks to David, and all much appreciated. Thank you very much. Councillors, we're running a little bit behind because we've had excellent presentations. So we have two more, which is Drowning Prevention Auckland. So Davin's coming up, and then we have Auckland Rescue Helicopter Trust, and we will then have a break after those two presentations. Welcome, Davin, and please introduce your... just the right hand. Put the right hand.
Attending today with me is our chair, Dr. Denise Atkins.
Welcome.
Okay, so Drowning Prevention Auckland is the lead and only agency in Auckland with the sole purpose of educating to reduce the drowning numbers of our residents and visitors. Drowning remains the third highest cause of accidental death in New Zealand after motor vehicle accidents and falls. Pleasingly, I guess, the number of drownings has dropped. In Auckland alone in 2017 there was 24, last year there was 16. 16 is still too many, but it is an improvement nonetheless. So a big focus for us this year, we've developed an e-learning platform over the last 18 months actually. This platform will change the way in which water safety education is taught not only in New Zealand but around the world. The platform is backed up by research from world-renowned researchers such as our board member, Dr. Kevin Moran. Each of the 15 basic water competencies that research shows us are required to be safe in, on and around the water are worked through with videos, teaching resources and finished off with a quiz. The e-learning platform can be worked through in the classroom, at a workplace or at home. It is aimed at all age brackets, it is accessible to all and is free to register. The platform is broken down in age brackets as the skills required vary dependent on the age and ability. We are in early negotiations currently with other sector partners such as Surf Lifesaving New Zealand, Water Safety New Zealand to actually add their areas of expertise onto the platform, which will make it a far more comprehensive offering. And I do have a teaser here, which is just it's a short minute video of some of the work we've done.
Hi, I'm Leilani.
Hi, I'm James.
Kia ora, ko Clayton tēnei.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Drowning Prevention Auckland.
Okay, so we used a company called 360 NZ to film all of our videos, and while they've been up with us, they've filmed 360-degree videos. Basically, we've purchased 27 Oculus Go headsets, which are visual reality headsets, and we take them into classrooms, and the kids will put them on, and they can look at rips, they can look at surf and all that sort of stuff, and where it is safe. We picked up our first two about 9 months ago now. I took them home and my 3 young girls fought over them for about 4 hours and wore them and looked at it. And the following weekend I took them to the beach, and my 10-year-old daughter, we were walking down the beach and she pointed out 2 rips as we went. So they really do work. It's something I was completely surprised by. We've also begun filming specific water safety videos in languages. Our first set was in Te Reo, and that featured waka armour and kai gathering safety. In the formal education sector, we've had another busy year. We've been to over 100 ECEs. In primary school space, a large emphasis for us is on train the trainers or train the teachers through providing professional learning and development. This in turn will allow the teachers to continue to teach the children long after we have left. A major focus for us this past year and for years moving forward is a special relationship we have with John Walker Fine Field of Dreams. And thank you, Sir John. With FIFOD and Swim Gym, they provide free swimming lessons to over 95 schools in South Auckland. Each year, 3 to 6 pupils receives 8 lessons per year. We now teach the 9th lesson in their classroom. These lessons are based around risk awareness, hazard identification and bystander rescue. Also in conjunction with FIFOD, we've attended 13 high schools in the South Auckland region, and we present 45-minute sessions to all the Year 10 students on risk awareness, hazard identification and bystander rescue. Next year we'll be adding another 10 schools in East Auckland. With William Pike, we've run 8 water safety circuit days down where we work in St Mary's Bay. These days are for intermediate aged children and test them out in safe open water environment, covering items such as safer boating, kayak, stand-up paddleboard use, life jacket use and also bystander rescue. In the workplace, again, we've had another busy year. We've partnered with Belgravia Leisure, who are Australia's largest contracting partner for facility operation, and they are currently the fastest growing partner in New Zealand. We now train all of their lifeguards in addition to running all of their first aid training and scenario training. We have developed a new program called emergency training. It's an innovative program that we are running with Belgravia Leisure and also Auckland Council. Basically what we do, we purchased an adult-sized mannequin. On a shift change, we'll go into facility and we'll submerge it somewhere in the pool. And we'll take out the shift outside and we'll run them around the block 2 or 3 times, get their heart rate going, and then we'll take them into the foyer of the centre and say, something's happened and you need to go and figure out what's going on. And we watch the guards and follow them around the pool as they find the person, and then we'll, afterwards we'll go through with the team and actually explain what they've done right, what they've done wrong. This sort of upskilling, if emergencies happen, will actually be of huge benefit. And also, after noticing a gap in the market, we've begun training Auckland Council and Belgravia team members in the correct use of oxygen and defibrillators. All aquatic and rec facilities in Auckland have oxygen and defibs, but very few of the team members have any formal training. The upskilling of this team will prove its worth in years to come. And coastal awareness, we continue to gain further leads with our 1- and 2-day workplace courses with regular clients such as DOC, Watercare and Auckland Council. In the community space, we've run over 10 kai gathering workshops in the past year. These workshops include classroom-based theory sessions, pool-based sessions and open water sessions. These open water sessions are generally held up at Army Bay in a location we picked which is extremely safe but still gives the participants a sense of the open ocean. Our Splash Breakaway program is a free holiday program we run in conjunction with Oranga Tamariki. It is targeted for youth aged 11 to 17 and is who are a high-risk group in drowning stats. The program covers learning such as water competence, safer boating program, and how to generally be safe in, on, and around the water. We are currently contracted to place 540 children in these holiday programs, which we achieved in January and the October school holidays this last year. We've just signed a 4-year contract, which is a great endorsement of our work and gives us certainty moving forward in this space. We continue to strengthen our relationships with Auckland Regional Migrant Services through their WISE project, Auckland Central Police through their ethnic community groups, RSTs also interacting with a wider range of new to New Zealand institutes. We've just begun an exciting partnership with Aspire 2 Language School, which will see us present a basic water competency session to all of their 3,600 new students on an annual basis. Our goal is to further build on the other relationships. And finally, in November last year, we ran our first Water Safety Week. This was a week included water safety circuits at St Mary's Bay, a research-based forum, and finished with a water safety weekend held at Okahu Bay. The weekend event was a real collaboration with many of our sector partners such as Surf Life Saving Northern Region, Coast Guard, YMCA, Belgravia Leisure and Water Safety New Zealand. They all joined us for a fun and educational weekend that was open to the public. We will expand on this Water Safety Week in the coming years with the possibility of it becoming a national event. That's it.
Thank you, Davin. Denise, anything you'd wish to add?
Thank you, Ross. Yes, I just want to reiterate our major project, which has been going on for the last 18 months, which you will have seen a little bit of in terms of the visual representation that we're able to offer quite a diverse range of different scenarios in the e-learning space. And we've piloted it and it's been really successful. So we're looking forward to expanding that now and having a greater reach across not just Auckland but other agencies throughout New Zealand. And lastly, I'd just like to acknowledge Vern for his leadership in the Amenities Board and also to thank Council for the continued funding for our very important service in providing drowning prevention to the citizens of Auckland. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Devin and Denise, and I think, yes, we'll be acknowledging Fern as well. Look, I've got 2 quick questions, and in a perfect world, I would love you not to have a job to do, you know? It's one of those things I like to encourage everyone to go to the theatre and everything else and the opera, but I don't want, you know, love to do you out of a job. Some statistics I'm interested in. What is the most unsafe? Pools, rivers or beaches? And the second question is, of the accidents we have, are they, do we know what percentage are visitors to Auckland and what percentage are residents of Auckland?
Yep. The greatest risk here depends on where you live. In Auckland it's beaches, whereas in the Waikato and further south it's rivers. So it's very much dependent on geographical. Aucklanders typically tend to go out of Auckland to die and drown. Not sure why. Many of the people that drown in Auckland are actually visitors. So we have got stats. I haven't got them with me today, but there are stats available that show where everyone is actually coming from.
Thank you. Supplementary to that is that, you know, it may be that the marketing around what we do is driven more in a slightly different way if they are visitors. That's what I was just saying. I'm just interested in knowing what the fence at the top of the cliff is relative to the statistics we have at the bottom.
Councillor Casey.
Just 2 quick questions based on your presentation, which was fascinating. Thank you. You mentioned that Auckland Council now have defibs and oxygen in all our facilities.
Yes.
But there are staff who are not trained to use them. Is that now covered off?
I think the staff are all trained to use them to some degree, but they haven't had any. It depends on the level of first aid qualification you have as to what sort of training you've had. They do on-site training, but it's far easier for someone like us to come in and train the team. Everyone seems to turn up as opposed to internal training.
And how far have you got across our facilities to do that?
We've only really touched the surface.
So that's
we haven't got anywhere. So we've had about 6 sessions in the last 6 weeks. We've got more scheduled.
And my other question related to, it's about new migrants and refugees who you didn't mention. You talked about diversity and you talked about languages.
Yes.
At what stage do our new migrants and refugees receive the advice that you provide?
We go through various different new migrant services. Some of them are receiving it within a week of being in the country. The Aspire 2 language schools, they are all receiving a talk from us within a week of being in New Zealand. So I was in Wellington about 6 weeks ago in an Uber, and the driver actually was a very good friend of the guy that drowned in Hanua Falls about 4 or 5 months ago. And they were both in the language school that we are now presenting to.
That's good to hear too. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Sorry, Denise.
Sorry, Kathy. We also work with the refugee centre for new migrants. And we have work with, through using Auckland University and AUT University, we work with young people that have also just arrived in terms of water safety and swim for life skills.
So of your drownings, I know you might not have the information, what percentage are new to the country?
Yeah, New Zealand Europeans are the highest amount of drownings, but on a per capita basis, Maori and Pacifica and new immigrants are far higher. The statistical numbers are lower, but on a per capita basis, they're high.
Councillor Cashmore to wrap it up.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. You said that the numbers had dropped off from fatalities this past year. What does the medium and long-term trend look like?
It's going down slowly. You only need a disaster like the Francie up in Kaipara 2 years ago, and all of a sudden those numbers are skewed, though. So, but at the moment it is trending down.
Is that as a percentage of population, or is it just a pure numbers?
Pure numbers.
Right, what's noticeable to me is a fantastic advancement with people wearing life jackets in boats, and I must admit I was out at Karekare just beach last weekend. There were 15 people on the rocks, and my wife and I noted that 13 of them were wearing white life jackets, which is a huge advancement. So
that's great.
Thank you very much, Davin and Denise, much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Mark from Auckland Rescue Helicopter Trust. Sorry? Oh, sorry, drowning prevention.
No, there was a presentation on the hub, but it's labelled in here.
Oh, okay.
So there is a presentation.
Okay. Welcome.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Chair, councillors and members of the ARAFA Board. Thanks for the opportunity to present. My name is Mark Newman. I'm the recently appointed CEO of the Auckland Rescue Helicopter Trust. Apologies today from our trustee and head of our finance committee, Kim Bagley, who was supposed to hold my hand through this, my first presentation. So I'd appreciate a degree of gentleness in your questions later on. Thank you. Firstly, I really do appreciate the opportunity to thank the ratepayers of Auckland through the Council and ARAFA for their continued support as we approach our 50th year of operating. We have some major projects that we've started and are yet to complete. My presentation today will begin with some financials, then I'd like to discuss our new helicopter project, government contract, the move of our base of operations to Ardmore, our business model with our friends in Northland, and our new operating model.
Mark, could you just turn off the speaker next to you?
Okay.
Thank you.
Cheers. Cheers. So key achievements between July 18 and April 19. In the period we performed 870 missions. Total operational costs were $7.855 million, with each mission costing around $9,000, of which ARHT has to fund 5,316. That comprises of 7,488 helicopter costs and 1,580 in clinical costs for those missions. Of the 870 missions, 502 were in the Auckland wards. The $450,000 grant that we've received from this council through ARAFA funded 50 of those Auckland missions. We generally seek funding from ARAFA for less than 25% of our normal operating costs for the Auckland ward-based missions, and last year our request was for around $700,000. We've had a moderately successful year fundraising. Total funds raised is $7.841 million. This is a 3% decrease on funds that we raised in the prior period. But as the cost of fundraising was at 30%, it meant that 70 cents in every dollar was available to fund helicopter operations or our capital projects. We're required to be airborne within 10 minutes during daylight hours and 20 minutes at night. We have achieved these targets 95% and 93% of the time. There were no reportable incidents or accidents, and there were no reportable medical events. Our per-mission cost of helicopter operations are approximately 20% higher than previous periods due to the Trust operating 4 helicopters over this period rather than the 2 that we will operate from August 2019 onwards. The quantum of projects currently being undertaken has led to our previously very healthy cash position being decimated from 25 million to a deficit of 7.5 million. We continue to be cash positive going forward and will work actively to reduce our debt. These beautiful machines are the $30 million worth of Italian thoroughbreds that we've brought into the country over the last 12 months. They're by a helicopter manufacturer called Leonardo. They offer our service and our capability more power, more range and more speed. We have doubled the interior space of our old 30-year-old helicopters, and this leads to much better patient access and outcomes. We received the first one in September of last year and the second one in February. We've got a high-end medical fit-out in them worth $1 million per helicopter, and they have high-end winch ability for search and rescue tasks. Our second project that we've got is our move out to the Admiral Airport. Disappointingly, we were not able to secure tenure at our current Mechanics Bay base from the Ports of Auckland. So we earlier this year purchased hangar and basic crew facilities at Ardmore. Large-scale redevelopment is underway, and the basic operational ability to go has been achieved, and CAA approval approved for that base in the last weeks, which is handy because we move out of our base at the end of the month. More facility buildings are to be completed by the end of the year. We're delighted that a major achievement for us was the signing of a 3-year and 7-month contract with the Ministry of Health beginning in April of 2019. This exercise consolidated our sector from 15 independent trusts to 3 regions. New operating regimes, equipment, crewing and reporting are required. The contract contributes around 7% of our funding, or of our operating costs, and we provide a clinical capability well above the minimum requirements of the NASO contract. Last time we presented to you, we were envisaging a merger with our Northland friends. That merger didn't go ahead, and instead we operate under a joint venture arrangement where we operate independently as subcontractors to that contract holder of the joint venture. When the contract and equipment is bedded in later in the year, the JV will provide 4 helicopters to service the northern region, 2 based in Auckland and 2 based in Whangarei. We have a new operating model. Auckland has received the largest aeromedical upgrade in our history in terms of equipment and crewing over this period. We now operate on a 24/7 basis one of our helicopters with a doctor and a ICP paramedic, along with the flight crew. The second helicopter, which operates currently on a 12/7 basis, carries the flight crew and 2 ICP paramedics. We are the only operator in New Zealand providing doctors on our crew. We very much appreciate your continuing support for this vital part of pre-hospital care and rescue services in our diverse region. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Questions? Councillor Casey.
Why couldn't you secure the lease from the Ports of Auckland?
I think it's been a long-running issue where ports, and I'm sorry, I'm only relatively new and came after those decisions were made. From what I can gather is there was a long-ranging challenge that the ports had another use for the land, and so we were only privy to 2-year leases over a very long period. At one point it became untenable. We really needed to redevelop the base because of inadequate and unsafe crewing facilities. And the Ports of Auckland weren't really willing to give us the tenure that we're required to invest that sort of money on the land. So a private operator has taken it over and is just making small changes to the existing facility.
Are there any downsides to moving to Ardmore for your service?
Well, I think that it knocks 7 or 8 minutes off our mission times through to Auckland Hospital or north of Auckland, which isn't ideal. Obviously helps us get south a little bit quicker. Because we're flying helicopters, these are important pieces of time. From our point of view, with the lack of inner city operating space, with the concern of our citizens around noise, and the ability that Ardmore gives us to create a world-class facility in terms of our training and crew facilities, on balance, we're pretty happy with it. Concurrently to not even moving into our new base yet, we are in discussions with the Auckland DHB to put an operating base on the top of the Starship Hospital car park, which would be ideal. Plenty of hurdles to go with that one. Small children and jet fuel are not a good mix.
Mayor Goff.
Councillor Casey just asked my question. Thank you. Welcome to Ardmore. It's where I live, and unlike Ōrākei, we won't have lots of people complaining about helicopter noises.
Thank you in advance, Mr. Goff.
He was a good friend of yours, Dave, Councillor. Right, well, I don't think there are. No, we have Councillor Darby. Sorry.
Just one question. We went over the acquisition costs earlier, and welcome to your position. That's great. So the disposal, I just can't remember the disposal of the older aircraft were offloaded, I gather.
No, we're actually currently operating 4 helicopters.
Oh, so you've
we're in
retained
transition.
everything. I thought you were maybe letting go one go. Okay.
Oh, we will, but during this transition period, we've only just received civil aviation approval to fly our helicopters with passengers in them or patients in them, and that's only just happened. We're still testing out the, let's say, the reliability of our Italian helicopters. So we're keeping one of our helicopters in reserve until Christmas to make sure that we can cover our operational requirements properly. And in fact, one of our other helicopters that we owned actually died 18 months ago, and we've had a leased machine in our model since that time. That will go back at the end of July.
So the intention is to transition, and clearly there's a good reason for that, very good reason. But you will be releasing capital through disposal of the one that's worth disposing of.
Yes, in March the engine, which is $1 million each, will be here. So we will have an airframe of 30 years old to sell. It's not expected to raise large tranches of cash.
Well, thank you, Mark. You head an organisation that is much loved and respected, so thank you, and pass that on to your board.
Very proud to do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right. Yep. Well, we'll just have a vote of thanks, but we'll actually ask Vern to come up on his own. So, Vern, we've got a very simple resolution there to acknowledge and thank you for your substantial contribution over the years. It's last night 11 years, as I thought it was more than 9. And needless to say, there's some people here you've worked with for a long time, Councillor Casey and Councillor Fletcher, through your work at Auckland City Council. Mayor Goff, who you've had a long association with through the Labour Party and other connections, and also as a friend. And then I will obviously recognise my professional association with you for over 15 years, and being a friend, a family friend through my daughter and your son over the last 20 plus years. So I have moved this, and I'm going to ask the Mayor to actually have the final word.
It's nice to have the final word, but we probably will give you a right of reply, Vern. Yeah, look, I'm very happy to second the motion of thanks to you, because I think you've just done a superb job over a very long period of time, and a job that's not always been easy to do. because you can please some of the people some of the time when you're dishing out public funding, and whenever you don't please somebody, the noises are much louder than the praise from those that you may have acknowledged. I have known you for a long time. I remember you when you were working in a bank down in Upper Hutt, I think it was, and you've come a long way from there. You've come to Auckland for a start, which was a very bright move. But it's also to thank you for your general public service that you've given to this city. You had 9 years on this council as an Auckland City Councillor. You had the job that actually Councillor Clow has got right now in charge of finance. But you've been, when you look at your CV, you've been on so many different boards, Portage Licensing Board, the Lottery Grants Board. You've worked with a range of organisations and you've given immense public service. But I think the crowning glory was that you were viciously attacked by whale oil, and anybody viciously attacked by whale oil has to be good by almost by definition. But that was an example of how, your job was not always an easy job to do, and you took that sort of criticism, most of it totally unjustified, and you got on and you did the job. So on behalf of all of us here, thank you very much for the hard work you've put in. You've always been accessible, you've always been reasonable, you've always been competent in what you've done. And if I can just add to Anita Colleen, congratulations on adopting the new job, and for Catherine Harland for the deputy's job. You have served the city well, and we look forward to your good work being carried on by your successors. Thank you very much.
So, Vern, before we give you a vote of thanks and with acclamation by clapping, would you like to say anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Your Worship, and yes, I have worked with a number of people around this table over many years. When I think of the Auckland Regional Amenities Funding Act, when it came into law, and the changes we've seen for the 10, now 9 amenities represented by that Act, it has been absolutely phenomenal. It's fair to say that a number of those amenities would not be here today had that funding mechanism not been provided through that legislation. And I just hope that it continues either in the form it currently is or in some other form, that these 9 now very worthwhile organisations are supported by Auckland Council. You've seen today and you've seen last month the calibre of the leadership of those organisations, both at governance level and management, and that has significantly increased over the years as they've almost grown from infancy in some cases to adulthood and are really delivering to the people of Auckland. I won't be leaving initially. I'll be still around Auckland and still on the board until next year, and I certainly wish Anita and Catherine every success as they progress what is always seems to be a hurdle every year with one issue or another that comes up. And I just want to also thank you, Mr. Chairman, and former chairs, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Simpson, Your Worship, for the being able to approach you and have free and frank conversations about things as they come up, which has helped us work through a number of quite difficult issues from time to time. So once again, it's been an absolute privilege, and I'm looking forward to seeing how things progress as we move forward. Thank you.
Well, enjoy being a farmer.
Cheers.
Councillors, we'll take a 10-minute break. We're running about an hour behind, but